Today we're going to talk about dialogue tags, he said. So stick around and let me walk you through what they are, why they're important, and a little bit on how to use them better. Hey there, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books, as well as a freelance editor, author of over 40 novel-length works, and a pile of other stuff, and currently the guy that's really tired because I'm prepping for a garage sale this weekend, and boy, do I have a lot of crap in my house that I'm trying to get rid of, so I'm dragging a little today, kids, but I want to talk about something very important that I see a lot of people in manuscripts that I'm editing either using poorly, not using often enough, or just using wrong, and that's dialogue tags. A dialogue tag is he said, she said, he yelled. Don't y'all want to see this big ball of floof? Gandalf says that I should not ever pick him up because he's a wizard and is above such primitive things. Also, now he's way more interested in whatever I just knocked off my desk than he is in me. So we're gonna. Also, you're heavy, boy. You're a chonk. Okay, so now that you've gotten your kitty fix for the video, let's talk more about dialogue tags. They're phrases that indicate someone is speaking, and most importantly, who is speaking. This is the number one thing that I see people screwing up with dialogue tags, and to be honest, it's one of the very few times you'll hear me say that audiobooks have hurt the writing world. But audiobooks have hurt people's use of dialogue tags. I run into authors who primarily listen to their media, and as such, they've lost sight of the importance of dialogue tags on the page. If you've got a great narrator, which I do, and you should check out my audiobooks, there's links down below. Your narrator is doing different voices for all the characters, and it's very easy as you're listening to the book to tell who's speaking. And as such, if you only consume or primarily consume audiobooks, it may very well be that your head is conditioned not to need dialogue tags. But when you're working in other media, you really, really do. But let's talk about a case where this exact thing happens. Drew Hayes is a friend of mine and a fantastic writer, and Drew produced a book a few years back called Secondhand Curses. Now, Secondhand Curses was an Audible original that was then later released with an ebook and a paperback. So when Drew was writing this for audio, he knew going in that there were going to be 3 narrators, one for each of the POV characters. He didn't have to use dialogue tags. So when the audio came out, it was very easy to tell who was speaking in a scene because they were different voices. And even when one of the narrators was doubling and doing a secondary or tertiary character, it was pretty obvious. That meant, though, that when Drew went later on to release the books as ebooks and print books, he had to go in and add back in dialogue tags because it's a different medium. You have to understand that you're working in a different format. Now, you don't often have the luxury of doing this, The way Audible Originals worked at that time, I don't know if they're still the same deal or not, but at that time, Audible only purchased the audio rights and had a 6-month exclusivity window before anyone else could release the ebook or print version of the book. We did a few of these where we did the print and ebook version of audio-only books. And we were then given the audiobook, the manuscript the audiobook was created from, and sometimes we did need to go back in and add dialogue tags, but it was very, very rare for us because the authors we were working with were accustomed to writing for print first. So when you're transitioning between mediums like that, you really do need to pay attention to, do you need more dialogue tags? And that's the thing that so many people are screwing up right now, is when do you need them? If there are only 2 people in the scene, you may need very few dialogue tags. If it's A, B, A, B, A, B, like a tennis match, you may only need dialogue tags in the beginning. I personally tend to like them every 3 or 4 lines of dialogue, just to kind of lock it back in my head who's talking, especially if someone says 2 things, one right after the other, and then the rhythm is off. So I still like to use a fair number of dialogue tags in 2-person exchanges, but where it gets to be super important is when there's more than 2 people in a scene. When there's 3 or more characters in a scene, you really need dialogue tags at almost every exchange. Almost every line needs a dialogue tag, or we're going to lose track of who's talking. Now, there are ways to do this without it being, "I see that time writer on your bookcase," Bob said. "Yes, it's right over the Operation Bounce House," John said. "It's sitting next to the gargoyle," Emily said. Those are boring dialogue tags. So how do you mix it up so it's not boring and still use enough dialogue tags to keep track of who's talking? 1, have them direct their sentence to a character. "Hey, John, how's that time writer I see on your shelf?" "It's pretty good, Bob. Thanks." There you go. I don't need a dialogue tag on either of those because I've referenced the character. So if you're going to do that, you can get away without a dialogue tag. But then you either fall into the trap of having your characters constantly saying, "As you know, Bob," which you don't want to do, or then you're bouncing right back to, "Bob said, Emily said, Barbara said, Jimmy said." There's a lot of damn people in this room now. So what you want to do is mix it up. Sometimes you'll use referential dialogue to keep people focused on who's speaking. Sometimes you'll add an action tag. "Hey, that's a neat gargoyle," Bubba said, walking over to the bookcase and picking it up. "Put that down, jack off," Jerry cried from across the room. There, I've got a standard dialogue tag, but I preceded it by a line of dialogue with an action tag that goes with it. And that's a way that you can continue to direct focus without being incredibly repetitive, and without saying the same thing over and over again, and without repeating yourself too often. Part of this, for me, comes from theatrical training. Because anytime I was directing, even when I was designing lighting, we're throwing focus. I'm directing the audience's attention to want to know what's over there. Nothing interesting, by the way. It's just a big softbox on a cheap light stand. But that's what you're doing with dialogue tags too. You're shifting focus and making sure that it's directed to the right character. Now there's a aphorism, piece of advice going around, decree, if you will, in my worst Dusty Rhodes impersonation, that you should only ever use said as a dialogue tag. I think that's crap. I think it's boring, I think it's dumb, and I think it's crap. Now, this does not give you license to yoink out your old thesaurus that you keep right beside your keyboard and start using various stupidly large or convoluted words to replace said. You don't want to be saying that someone elocuted or that someone pronounced, unless they did. Keep it simple and keep it correct. I also see a lot of people who are slavishly devoting themselves to only ever use said. I see them do it when it doesn't match the punctuation in the scene. If you're asking a question, don't say, "Hey, where are you going?" he said. No, he didn't. He asked. "What are you doing?" he said. No, he didn't. He yelled. I didn't yell. There are other people in the house and cats, and I don't want to scare the cats. So make sure that your tags match your punctuation and vice versa. It's all got to fit. Different dialogue tags can also add to your setting. They can add to the emotional arc of a scene. But again, don't go overboard. And I'm not telling you that you have to use a dialogue tag after every line. I am telling you that once you've done your first draft, you need to go through and reread every scene of dialogue with fresh eyes so that you can determine if the scene makes sense with the tags that you've written in. And if it doesn't, you need to change them. Maybe you need to add more. Maybe it's just stupid repetitive and too clunky, so you need to cut some. Maybe your characters are just standing there, yip, 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 and you need to add action tags so they're doing things. But there is no one-size-fits-all answer, and looking at it with fresh eyes is so critical for this. That's why I tell you that between every revision, you got to let a book sit. You got to let it percolate for at least a month. I finished writing the first draft on Unburied, the temporary title for the thriller that I'm going to be revising. I finished writing it in April or May. I haven't looked at it since then. So now that I'm gearing up to revise it, I'll be looking at it with fresh eyes because it will have been several months since I've touched it. And you need to do the same thing with your work. You need to let it breathe, let it settle, and then go back through every scene where people are talking and decide, do you need more dialogue tags overall? Do you have too many dialogue tags and you need to mix them up with action tags? Do you need to have your characters doing things? The answer is yes, by the way. You almost always need your characters to be doing things. There are very few times when it's interesting to read a scene where two people are just standing there talking. Sam Shepard and David Mamet could kind of get away with this because they wrote brilliant dialogue, you're neither Sam Shepard nor David Mamet. At least I assume you're not. If you are, well, hey, good job. And then you need to look and see if your punctuation matches the dialogue tag, if your dialogue tag matches the punctuation, and if you want to be using things like shouted or whispered or cried. Cried is tough because it has too many meanings and it's hard to understand what someone's saying. That's not a good dialogue tag. Stammered is a good one because you can depict that on the page cleanly. So take a good look at your dialogue tags, and also take a look down below on your screen and see that subscribe button. Why don't you click that? And if you already clicked that, you can click another button that says join, and you can become a member of the channel and have your name written right here on my purplish wall. And you know, even if you don't, you can also still just give a like and leave me a comment with your favorite dialogue tag and maybe the worst one you've ever seen. Don't name the book, don't name the author, just tell me the worst one you've ever seen. Although if you say Voldemort hissed, I'll probably know what book series you're talking about. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Kind of a quick one, but this is just something that has struck me in some recent edits, and I wanted to share that with all of you so that you can clean up your dialogue tags and know when to use them, how to use them, and when to avoid them. All right? Now, get out there and clean up your manuscripts. Till next time, bye.